But when did school teach us about money? That's funny.
Yeah. And also, if you look into the history of the schooling system, it's actually quite scary and dark. My opinion on this, and what I would like the audience also to take away, and I want to hear your thoughts on it, is that whenever I get kids, they're not going to school.
And it's almost like you're forever trying to dig out of a hole, but you can't dig out of a hole. But in some ways, this scam is necessary. I feel like I've pushed that line before, and I've never really spoken about this before. I haven't had that chance to. But I think people need to hear it.
Welcome everybody to this very special podcast. I am so excited you guys are watching this one, and I really want to say make sure to watch till the end, because in this podcast we're going to explain why college is a scam. And on today's podcast we have the most incredible guest that you guys will probably love to see, which is none other than Master Akarshana. Now, for those of you who know him, know that he's absolutely amazing, but what you probably don't know is that he is also my first business mentor, my brother from another mother, and I'm just so excited to be here in this episode with him. So without any further ado, let us dive in. So, Master Akarshana, my brother, so happy to have you here on this special day.
Thank you, Tjibaria, for having me on my own podcast set.
And I am so excited and fired up about this podcast, because really, the purpose of this podcast is to make sure that everybody who's watching this truly walks away a changed man or woman and is empowered to take matters into their own hand and create the lives of their dreams. So let's just start by putting the question straight away out there. Why do you believe that college is a scam? Or do you believe that college is a scam?
It's a scam for most people, but we've been scammed all our lives. So it's become very normal. We get scammed about pharmaceuticals, about medicine. We get scammed about... it's to keep us locked in a system. Huh?
Yep.
And but in some ways, this scam is necessary.
That's interesting. Why do you say that?
Everybody's looking for freedom. Like, your message is to teach everybody how to become financially free. If you succeeded one day and everyone became financially free in the whole world, there would be no system anymore. How could you have a business with no employees?
That's a good one.
So that's why sometimes having something that makes people like NPCs in a game, a non-player character, almost like they live the same mundane life every single day, running that never-ending rat race on that guinea pig wheel. This game is designed that way. And I don't think... I mean, it's a nice mission to try and awaken as many people as possible. And that should be our goal.
All right.
But I think it will forever be a scam.
I love that you're saying that. And I also love that we have some time here. So my job is going to be to try and convince you otherwise. Because I do agree with you that obviously order is required and some sort of system will definitely be helpful. But what would you say to the part where in this game of achieving freedom, it doesn't necessarily mean that everybody needs to have their own business. As a matter of fact, it's like I think 80% of millionaires are not actually running their own business, but are in someone else's business. So would you see the possibility of creating a life where people are indeed free and they don't necessarily all have to be a business owner, but there's still the different roles that everybody's playing within this system, yet have more freedom and more happiness in this world?
Well, I think you carefully said more freedom. So if you say more freedom, then yes, of course you can have more freedom. But nobody will ever have absolute freedom.
Okay, define absolute freedom.
You can do whatever you want, whenever you want, with whoever you want.
Okay.
You cannot do that.
And why is that?
It's a system.
So what if you
You
had
cannot do that. I cannot do that. None of us can do that.
So what about this scenario? Imagine
People can say I'm financially free, but I cannot do that right now. I cannot do what I want, whenever I want, with whomever I want.
Yeah. But then what if we were to define freedom in a way where we are able to be responsible and do the things that we have to do, such as we might not be able
But
to
responsible is subjective.
Okay. How about this one?
Like what's responsible in your terms is different to what's responsible in my terms.
Okay. So what if we say it this way, that we are doing what we have to do, but we have the freedom of choice in such a way that we can look after our families, we can live a happy life. If there's a medical expense coming up, we are able to pay for it. But obviously, I have to do my business, I have to go do my job, you have to do your job. But then within that setting, we still have more than we would have in the current corrupt, scammy system.
So again, I agree with you. More is the key word. We can all become more financially free or more spiritually free. We can become more. And most people, they are stuck.
Yeah.
They're stuck and they don't know they're stuck. They think it's normal because the system or the scam has made us believe that it's normal. You know, I think it's part of the game.
Yeah.
I think if that wasn't normal, there would be no point in life. Like I see this game like Prison Break. Like imagine Prison Break without going into jail. You wouldn't watch the movie.
Yeah.
It would be boring.
Yeah.
They're already broken out. They're already free. So what's the point? There's no goal. So it's almost like we come into this game and it's okay, I'll put you in prison first. How do I put you into prison? Well, first of all, from 0 to 3 years old, you are most free. You can do whatever you want. You can even poop wherever you want. And somebody's going to clean up your shit, right? So that's kind
quite
of
literally
0 to 3.
Yeah.
From 3 years old onwards, you need to abide by a system already because you go into school.
Scam.
And what is the purpose of school? You know, it's funny because when you speak to the average person and you say, is money important? And there's quite a lot of people who say money isn't important, love is more important, family is more important. But actually, the most important thing in this game, and I know when I say this, a lot of people are going to think what he's talking about, but the most important thing in this game is money.
Yeah.
Like you can say, no, it's love, or no, it's family. But without money, you can't look after your family.
Exactly.
If you just look at the simple Maslow's hierarchy of needs, you need food, you need water. That requires money in this physical reality. So money is the most important thing to keep anyone alive.
Yeah.
So don't talk about love, don't talk about family, don't talk about, no, it requires that for anything else to happen. But from 3 years old, what are you playing? You're already playing a money game. But we don't realize it. We think we're playing a school game. We're playing an education game.
Yeah.
But what's the point of education? Because to finally get a degree. Then to finally get a degree, what was the goal of that? To finally get a job.
Yeah.
But then we need to understand how much of our lives is inside that system. Because, and the system is not designed to make you win. They designed loads of different things in the game to make you, to hopefully make you lose. And your goal is to prison break.
Yeah.
So from 3 years old to 16 or something, you're going through your first middle high school stuff, primary, secondary school stuff. From 17, 18 to 22 or something, you're in university. In your case, it's much longer because you do all the business and the MBA and whatever, all the rest of it, and PhD and everything. So you would have went on till 30, whatever, I don't know, right? So, but the average coming out with a degree at 22, let's say 22, 23, what was that for? You did all of that for money. because you want to finally, hopefully, get a job, which most people can't get a job these days with their degree.
Yeah.
So they'll probably still work in I'm not saying Starbucks is not a job, but they probably work in something they didn't study all those years for and pay for.
Yeah.
But the most interesting thing is when they designed the system, they thought, well, it's going to be far too easy if they just go through this and then they start making money at 22 or 23 when they find a job. So let me put a more interesting challenge in between. So let me make it normal that you're supposed to take a student loan before going into university.
Yeah.
So it's like, okay, 18, I'm going to put you in 30K of debt at least. Then it'll make it more interesting, because from the moment you start work, you're just repaying. You're not getting yourself free.
Yeah.
You're trying to repay debt that you have. And that's why, it's quite an interesting system, because then people will work for at least the first 10 years of their life for a lot of people. Yeah. Some people, they still have their debt with 30 something, you know. And those 10 years, they are repaying something for the study to get the job that they're working in, but the job pay now is repaying the thing. Yeah. So then finally you feel like maybe you're clear. At hopefully at 30 odd years old, you're probably clear now. I've got some debts paid off. But no, because then now they brainwash you with all the media and all the advertising and everything that comes out, that 0% financing, whatever loans and things like that, and get you into more debt. And basically credit cards are so easy for you to get mortgages for houses, very easy for you to get, so that you get yourself always in debt. And it's almost like you're forever trying to dig out of a hole, but you can't dig out of a hole. Yeah. You see, you have to climb out that hole. You have to rise upon that hole. So they're forever digging and hopefully get out the hole, but then it's never going to happen. Until when? Well, until one point at age 30, 40, odd years old, where you're kind of like, well, it seems like I'm never going to get out of this. So you only have one hope left. And that hope is that, I mean, if you ask a lot of 30-year-olds out there and you say, what's your goal now? I would like to retire early. And you're like, oh, okay, that's your life goal. Yes, retire early. Yeah. So now you come on, okay, what does retire early mean? Well, average retirement is at 65 or 70 or something like that, right? So retire early, I mean, if someone retires at 50 something these days, it's already classed as, wow, you did well. But we need to understand then what is the average life expectancy is probably at still 80 years old or so today. Right? Obviously, some people live longer, some people live shorter, but around 80 years old. So if you're retiring at 65 and most people are dying at 80, then you have 15 years to live your life, where you're like, woohoo, no work then. So I'm retired. And then you're going to hope that the government pay you enough so that you can go and enjoy your life, which you won't really. You'll get by. Yeah.
And then with inflation on top of that, you probably don't even get by. You have family members needing to help you.
Yeah, in many cases. And so what does that mean? It means, if we think of it, I know it sounds quite sad to start a podcast like this, but it means that 0 to 3, wow, free spirit. I hope you enjoyed those years, because you're not going to get any more of that. Yeah. From 3 till 65, for the average person, you're going to be digging in that hole, hopefully to see the light at some point. And then at 65, you will see the light, a bit of light, a glimpse of it, where it's like, I don't need to work now, but I don't have money to live a extravagant life. I have money to just maybe get by. And now I can finally enjoy my life and travel the world when my probably knees are weak and whatever. And knees weak, you say, oh yeah, but I go to the gym or I go work. Not many people, because actually, again, part of the whole scam system, McDonald's, your junk food, all of these stuff is all promoted. All the things that are unhealthy are always promoted. The things that are healthy are not promoted. So that's part of the system. Yeah. And not only that, just in case you do look after your health too well and it's too good, you got good health, then we can't have that, obviously. So let's just occasionally put something like a COVID-19 out there so that we make sure that you need some sort of vaccine and jab that we can then control you a little bit more and then make sure that you don't have that health. Yeah. That's the system. That's
we're
the
dealing
game.
with.
Yeah.
I fully agree. And I think I'm very happy that you explained all of this, because I can very much assume that everybody listening to this at this point will probably have some sort of realization of, okay, I'm stuck in here, and what to do to get out of it. And so one of the things that I want to bring to the table is that as much as this system is very much there, and believe it or not, everybody watching, there's a lot more even to it than what is just explained, and there's a lot of different forces at hand, but you can break free. And you can allow yourself to first start with the mental freeness and having that awareness, and then start by step doing those things that allow you to come out of it. And that's the next thing that I want to share and talk about with you on, in terms of what can people do listening to this podcast right now to actually say, okay, I realize that there are certain things at hand that are not necessarily very good. How can I get out of it? And so I want to first come back to what you shared about money, because I think that's a very important part. I actually learned that from you, that whenever you are saying the most important thing is money, doesn't mean that you will love your family any less, doesn't mean that you are only money driven. But actually what I like to say, and I want to hear your thoughts about that, is that success is actually one of the ultimate forms of self-love. Because if you love yourself so much that you're like, I want to get to a state where I am perfectly healthy, I can look after myself, I can look after my loved ones, you love yourself so much that you will not settle for anything else than that. Is actually what's gained through success. So focusing on getting your money right, being able to build something, allow that then to help other people, I think is actually one of the most noble goals. What would you say to that?
I think you're right. I mean, I think that's our responsibility. Mm-hmm. We're on this planet for such a short time, and our responsibility is to at least look after ourselves first.
Yeah.
That's why in business we always say we learn to pay ourselves first. Mm-hmm. It's important, because if you can't look after yourself, you can't look after anybody else. So there is nothing noble about that. And I think that it's something that is the truth, but is at the same time is also not, I mean, people are not educated to go down that route in thinking that way. And all they can think right now is, I'm broke, I'm stuck, I'm paying every month for everything, and there's no money at the end of the month. Yeah. And that's basically where they're at right now. I think that, I mean, you said, what is the biggest thing they need? They need a mentor, they need a coach. Yeah. They need you.
They need you.
Yeah, that's what they need. They need to learn from people like you, because that's why this, we can call it new age education, personal development. Yeah. You know, finding yourself a life coach, finding yourself a business coach, you know, a wealth coach is extremely important, because the system is not going to teach us that. Yeah. You know, if you really think about it, it's so funny how everything you will need in the future, pretty much, to even get by, is money. Yeah. But when did school teach us about money? That's funny. Yeah.
And also, if you look into the history of the schooling system, it's actually quite scary and dark, how it was actually created to be able to create factory workers. And they were just like, okay, how long does it take to indoctrinate a nation? It takes 12 years. And then to take all of those facts in. And if you get an A, it basically means that you'll be a great factory worker and you take orders well. Whereas if you are getting an F, then it's like, no, that's not good and whatever. Whereas those are usually the free thinkers. And so my opinion on this, and what I would like the audience also to take away, and I want to hear your thoughts on it, is that whenever I get kids, they're not going to school. And basically, what we see a lot in our events and whatever we do is that there's so many people that have gone through all of that garbage injecting in their brains, which is school and whatever else is out there that indoctrinates people. And then they come to an age, 30, 40, 50, 60, however old they are, to say, okay, right now I want to kind of unlearn all of this stuff and be able to then finally, you know, break free from this through a spiritual route, through a business route, or the combination of the both. So I'm like, why would you put any child through that predicament? Why not actually say, hey, you know what, take it away?
Would you say no school from the beginning?
Yes, but not no education. So I'm pro-education, just not the schooling system, as it is designed.
So you will not put them into play school? You will not put them into year one, form one? You will not put them into primary school?
I would want my kids to be in a situation where they can mingle with other kids, but I would want them to basically learn entrepreneurial skills and whatever their hobby or their passion is. That
So will
they'll be
they
able
go to
monetize.
school?
Not in its current form, but I would see something like kids conferences or play.
But where
environments.
can they have kids conferences that can keep them busy every day now?
So this is a good question. We're actually in the process of creating something like that. Well, we're starting online first, but then when that is online
But what about the
available,
basics of maths and
I think to a
language?
certain degree, those things are needed. But those
so
skills
they will
can be
still go
learned.
to school or not go to school?
No, they'll learn this from whatever new age
So
education
you're
is
quite
there.
strong on this.
Yeah. Yeah. I think
But it's gonna take you a lot of. It's gonna take a lot more effort from you as a parent.
it's true. It is true. But I think that's also why having, again, a sort of solution whereby there is the schooling, but also there is the part of, helping parents to create this vivid environment where their child can, well, not only be more happy and actually live out whatever they want to do rather than to have to study for something that they don't want to do later on anyways. Or even if they do get a job, 80% of people all around the world hates their job, which is a stat measured all around the world, which is so sad. And then also on top of that, that whatever we study for, we don't even get to practice in most of the cases. Like if you have an environment where you do learn the basic skills, such as language, math, and whatever else we need to be able to do what we need to do to get by. And on top of that, entrepreneurial skills and speaking skills, which is what you teach so much as well, then with those things, anyone could go and do whatever they want. But in that, I can think that we can have a new order, coming back all the way to the topic from the beginning. So it might not be that everyone is like fully like with the same levels of freedom or the same levels of how they would define abundance, but it would be a more abundant life from the get-go, in my opinion. What do you think?
I mean, it sounds like a wonderful dream. I'm just thinking what the practicality of doing something like that is. Like, who's creating this school?
So basically, in the way how we see it, is that we create an online school first, which we are basically maybe 1 or 2 years away from. And that would be complementary to the current education that there is.
So meaning they still go to school?
At this stage, yes. Not my kids will never go to school, but most kids will be in school. So this will sort of first start as a complementary thing. After that complementary thing is proven to be super helpful, and actually you can see that the kids are and more happy and more expressive, more creative, which a lot of the time in schools get kind of kicked out of kids in a way. If you look at a child that comes in the first few years, let's say 4 years, 5 years, 6 years, they're super creative. And then after they finish their first, how do you call it in English? The first school, then it's kind of like it's kicked out and we more want to be like everybody else. And
you don't think that if you don't let them go to school, they're going to not understand society as it is? They're going to be maybe in too much of a protected space?
I think that is a very good point, and we should have a solution for that. Which form that will take, I don't know yet. But if you also look at a lot of, let's say, super wealthy kids that are being home educated by their parents, they're still getting into environments where there's other kids, where there's other people, basically, and they learn those normal social skills. But I think the way that it is now streamlined and the strings that are there, like there's certain things that a kid must do, will take away a lot of the joy. So I don't think this is maybe something that will happen overnight, but I think the first stage is how can you help, which is what we do, all of those people that are now suffering from whatever has happened in the last couple of years. But then the second step is, okay, how can we bring in slight improvements, which is what we're doing in terms of, and I know you're doing something like that as well, like bringing in education, entrepreneurial education for kids. And then later on, when you see, hey, that actually allows for so much more life success, not only financial success, but happiness and creativity in kids, then you can say, okay, how can this new form of school take on the things that the normal school would have, and then step by step have a phased approach that maybe in 50 years it will be normalized as such. That's what I think. And I'm so excited about it.
It's a big mission. Yeah. It's a big mission. Not easy at all. Only for powerful people like you to
Bless you.
have a think about, I think.
But let me actually say this, and I don't know if much of the audience knows this at all, but I just want to really say a huge thank you to you, because you are my first business mentor, and what I basically saw, and maybe some of the audience is thinking about this too, like I came from a hugely educated background. I've had like two, we call it in Dutch propenduizen, so it's like a first year. I have 2 bachelors, I have a master's degree, I was doing my PhD and was 5 months away from becoming a doctor. And then I met you and I was like, you know what, throw that all away. Because I had this dream of doing something that would allow me to help people and look after myself, look after my family, and just help people in general. But I had no clue where to begin. So I saw you and I was like, wow, this guy's living the life that I want to live. You're helping people, you're doing good, you're making good money. And then I heard about the charity. I was like, oh my gosh, that's the life that I want to live. So basically, long story short, I had to invest in myself, didn't have the money, found the money, asked my parents, borrowed from the bank. And then was the time question. So I quit my PhD and I was like, okay, here I am. And you obviously remember the stalking story. And then 1-2 weeks later, I showed up at your doorstep, starting to work at that company, H Academy back in the day. But what a lot of people probably don't know is that I learned so much from just coming with you to business meetings. Like I remember you were having these business meetings at a nail salon somewhere in London. That other guy, I think he was a Persian guy, and he had his store, and I just came with you in all of your business meetings. I was just observing how you were helping them and the kind of conversations that you had. And then there was the over the kitchen table speaker lessons that you gave. And I think that was so impactful to me that in only a number of weeks, I was like, whoa, this business thing is actually not that hard. And why isn't this the type of education that we have in school? So like more practical type of situations. So why am I sharing this? Number one, because it has made such a profound impact on me. And still to this day, the lessons that you taught me, I carry with me. I shared with my audience, my students. But also number two is that I think most people really have the issues in their stuckness just here. It isn't so hard to break free. It isn't so hard to learn how to do business, to learn how to allow yourself to live a life of your dreams. But as long as, like you said earlier, you can find someone that can teach it to you in a practical way, and you have the willingness to break free, then that's all you need. And you will get there with ups and downs, but you'll get there.
You think everyone can get to your level?
Yes, and beyond. And it's actually interesting because I was thinking about this earlier today, like, will everybody be able, because that's generally my belief, every single human being has the power to be able to create a beautiful life for themselves. But I do think that the thing that it will depend on is the way how they think. Like Henry Ford says, whether you believe you can or you can't, you are right. So if the mind, and that is stimulated and fed by everything around us, makes us believe that we cannot do it, we'll never get out. But if the mind is inspired and that little spark of excitement is fed and you are starting to think like, hey, maybe I can do this, then all of a sudden that growth is possible. And generally, I know your goal and my goal similarly is to help people to get there and get far beyond what we've ever done at all. So yeah, I generally do believe that.
You believe that everyone can get there?
Everyone.
You don't think that some people are built differently?
I think people are built differently, but I think also the goals and desires of freedom are different. So it could be that one person's dream of being free is to have an online shop that you manage from home and you're looking after your family and you're making maybe like 10K per month. And that is super awesome and you're free in that way. Others may want to build a tech company that is doing $1 billion per year. And so I think because of our goals being different, and also because we're built different, we have different skills, that maybe the way how that future unpacks is different, but I think everyone has the ability to break free one way or another.
What was it that, when you said you came to the conference and then you decided that, okay, this is the path that you want, and you want to go into the entrepreneurship route, but you had dedicated so many years to studying. I mean, that already is some... Not everybody can do what you did even studying, like decide to stay on and go again and learn more and go for more exams and things like that. It's like, you must have had a goal at that point. Why were you doing another year and another course and another program? When you were in that education system, what was your goal?
My goal was actually to be able to create a future where I can give back to my parents and give back to other people. But in doing that, I remember, I think it was in my second year of being a PhD, I was looking at the pay slip and it had all the different, levels and professors that have been professors for 15 years. And I was looking at, okay, what do they get paid? Let's see what my future looks like. And I was looking at a professor that has been 15 years in the field doing all sorts of amazing things, and you really have to like work super hard for it. And I was looking, they would make 8,000 per month. And I remember looking at that and it's like, like not that I care about the money, but I do care about what the money can do. And I was just doing some basic calculations, like how can you really make an impact with that sort of money? And I think that's what, for the first time, got me to think, like, okay, I've gone on this path. Obviously, my parents had paid a lot of money for me being able to go through school. And I've made a lot of sacrifices in doing that. But then I was just like, okay, so for the money part of it, it's probably not going to cut it. And then I asked myself the question, like, do I actually like doing this? And I remember going to the university, and I was commuting for 5 hours per day. It was a long train ride. And I remember getting out of bed in the morning and being like, okay, here we go again. And that didn't really sound like, to me at least, like living a fulfilling life. I want to get out of bed and be joyful and be like, okay, what am I going to do today?
So were you already looking for something else, or would you say that because you didn't know anything else at the time, you weren't really looking, you were just continuing this path and just seeing what would pop up? Or
no, I was looking. It was especially the last year, so I was just going into my last year of the PhD.
So you were already questioning whether you should do this?
Yeah, I was. And I don't know if I ever told you this story, but my sister Kaina, she will know. I actually applied for an internship at a company, and then I went for that job interview, and they said like, no, you're not qualified or this or that. I was like, okay, so that's cool. So I was like, I'm not sure if the business world is for me then. And then I came across Tai Lopez, and I was like, oh, that's super awesome. So I started watching his videos. And I think it was some of the things that he said that made me feel hope, because he didn't have all of those fancy degrees. He had, $37 in his pocket, sleeping in his mom's apartment. And that was like, okay, so maybe I can do this too. And then I saw a video of him and John Lee. So I was like, okay, interesting. And Wild Dragons, obviously knowing their ads, then an event popped up, which was the Wild Dragons. And it's like, oh, that's the guy I saw with Tai Lopez, must be good. And then I saw you at that event. It's like, oh my goodness, okay. And I really, like at the beginning, I was just like, okay, all the speakers are awesome. But I guess it wasn't until you start speaking about Kenya that I was like, okay, you're my mentor. And I don't care how I have to make this work, but it felt like a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. And the normal thoughts that pop in your mind, I don't have the money, I don't have the time, shall I do it later? But I felt like if I was not to take action upon it, then it wouldn't come around in that same way, if that makes sense. So it's like, this is the way to go.
I was keep asking before about whether you think that everyone can do this, is because, everybody's built so differently. And some people are more naturally entrepreneurs and leaders. Some people require a lot more training to get there. When you went from a complete the system world into, within, let's say, 2 to 3 years, you had to very quickly become an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
Like, did you find that journey was easy? Is there certain things that pops up in your mind now where you feel like these particular barriers or challenges was hardest for you personally to overcome or adapt to in terms of the way you think or mindset or anything?
Yeah. So to answer your first question, did I feel like it was easier? Yes. It felt like a breath of fresh air, especially in the way that you shared things with me. I know there's a lot of business coaches out there that are like, they're doing things a lot more.
Tjibaria, it's actually nice you say that, because it was different. I felt it was different for me. For me, entrepreneurship was a very hard game.
Yeah.
I felt it was hard.
Yeah.
Like, I think 6 years, I felt it was hard.
Yeah.
To have money at the end was hard game for me. I didn't know how to do that.
And what was the hardest for you then? Was it like
the first part was revenue, knowing how to generate revenue, and the second part was knowing how to manage the money. So even when I finally broke out getting revenue after several years, I felt, because I thought I needed money, then I finally made more money, and then I needed to learn from scratch what managing money was, because had a lot of revenue, but I had no, like, people say, oh, you're a 6-figure earner. Yeah, but I don't have any money in my bank account.
Yeah.
That becomes a different problem. So,
Yeah.
you know, it was tough for me. And that's why I'm asking you that question. You know, what was the things, but you say it's easy. So I'm just wondering, is that you being positive about speaking about it, or was it actually just easy becoming a profitable business?
Well, I'll say this. I think the biggest thing, two hardest things for me, one was actually very early on in my start when I moved to the UK. And I can't actually remember if I ever told you this story. But the first moment that I went to learn everything I can learn quite quickly. So, and you explained very well, and I was seeing you in action. So I was like, oh, this stuff is not so hard. So then we had our first Superpower Live, and I was able to close 70,000 roughly in a couple of weeks. And I was like, oh, well, this stuff is actually easy. But what scared me...
Your first time seeing 70,000 in a few weeks. Yeah.
Exactly. I was just like, what? How is this? And then again, back to that table, it's like...
That's 1 year work, yeah?
Yeah. And right now,
as a professional,
at my current level, it was just like maybe like more, a few years or something. I didn't do the math, but what scared me was like I didn't want to lose my integrity or the person that I am, and I was afraid at first, and I don't know if other people may have this as well. Comment below. That when I learned sales, I first thought, and it's also by what other people were saying around me that were also like my peer students, about there being a manipulative side about it. And then I started questioning, like, am I actually doing the right thing? Because I want to get success. I want to, do amazing things, but I never want to lose myself. And I always want to be able to, at the end of the day, look myself in the mirror and know, okay, I'm a good person, number one. And I'd rather be a good person and not make the money than the other way around. So what scared me was like, I was getting good at this stuff. It's like, am I actually doing the right thing? And it was one of those days before I went back to Amsterdam, my first time coming back to Amsterdam, that I went to the cathedral, and I was actually standing in front of the Mary statue, and I was crying, and I don't think anybody knew at that time, but I was just like, am I doing the right thing? And I lit a candle, and I said, please give me a sign, because I want to do this so much, and I love the environment, I love, my mentor, so amazing, and please give me a sign that there is a way to do this and staying myself at it, because I didn't fully understand all of the things I was learning yet. And then there was this little smoke coming my way. I was like, oh my goodness, that's my sign. So then I went on. And it wasn't until later that I actually started to understand a lot better what sales really is. And this is actually the next part that I would like to discuss with you, because in the way how I see things now, 9 years into the entrepreneurial career, is that sales is actually a really spiritual process. And in the way how we shared with our clients, it's that beautiful empowerment that allows a person to see a better future and then to help move them towards it. But then on the other hand, you have all these other people like scammers or people that just want to make a quick buck, and they're nice to you when you pay, but they're not nice to you when you would not do that. And so there was this clear contrast in the beginning that I couldn't understand, which was, again, the hard part for me. But then later on, it actually was like, no, it's that when you sell to someone, that you are not giving up upon them, even though they may have given up upon themselves, and that you continue to take them by the hand and say, hey, there's a better future for you. Let's go and do it. Is that the way how you experienced it as well?
Sales was a very tough thing for me. I think sales was more tough for me because I was a shy kid growing up. And didn't have many friends, so didn't really talk to people. And sales requires good communication.
Yeah.
So I didn't like it, didn't want to get into it. And I did it because I felt like I had to. I've got a business, I have to have sales. I feel my younger self pushed that wherever you draw that line, I feel like I've been close to pushing that line before. If I'm completely honest, that question of, is this the right thing?
Yeah.
Should I make this sell? I feel like I've pushed that line before, and I've never really spoken about this before because, well, I don't do many business podcasts these days.
Yeah.
So I haven't had that chance too. But I think people need to hear it because, you know, it's hard. I think business can be hard. If you don't have somebody who's you get to talk to or mentor you throughout the journey, you can get lost in it because when you start out a business, you're probably dropping everything, maybe your job, your whatever, you're leaving everything to start a business. And in my case, you would take out I took out a few £100,000 worth of loan. So from the moment I started the first business, I was already $500,000 in debt. That's a lot of pressure.
Yeah.
There's a lot of pressure, not just on myself, but even on one of the loans was a guarantor of my family, my family home, my parents' home. So that was even more pressure.
Yeah.
So when you start an entrepreneurship like that, you cannot not make the sell.
Yeah.
Like this becomes okay. So
Yeah,
where's the moral part of this part of the equation? Because if you don't make the sell, you can lose everything, and not just lose your own thing. If you put more stake on the line, in my case was my parents' home. You know.
Yeah.
I think I'm lucky that I grew up in where my, I guess, family morals are quite strong in the sense that you cannot cheat, you cannot scam, you cannot do these, you cannot steal, you cannot these things. So in that sense, then at least I didn't get to even have any intention to cross the wrong line.
Yeah.
But still, I would question myself whether it's right to close this deal right now or close that deal right now.
Yeah.
Especially when people weren't ready. I think that's the worst thing. I mean, there's a huge learning curve for me because, but how can you, like, in that moment, and I don't believe, you know, I can speak my truth today and people can make a lot of judgment on it. But I believe there are thousands, if not millions of people out there right now in a very similar situation where you have a business, your livelihood, or maybe your family's livelihood, or maybe your kids' livelihood depends on you being able to pay the rent tomorrow, or you being able to pay for the food on the table. And then you're faced with a business deal or transaction or sale that you have to do, whether you like the client or like the customer or not. Maybe in some sense, whether you think that you do have the best product or not, or in some sense, maybe whether you know that this product is the best for the client or not. And I have to admit, back then there would be some times where there would be a few times where I would see, that if you really ask me, do I think that this product to client fit is perfect? The answer probably is no. But I had to make the call.
Yeah.
So when you make the call, then I make the close, and you make the close, and then I'm thinking that thing that you're thinking, except I feel it's worse in that point because I've made the close.
Yeah. It's interesting, and thank you so much for sharing this. This really means a lot because I think it's probably, and I never knew this, that experience that you had actually saved me in a way, because I remember at the first Superpower Live that we had, some conversations and then some other things where I was, learning the ropes of closing, that you said to me at one point when I was about to close a big deal, is it really worth it? Because not every deal is worth the money because it's going to bring stress or this or that. And then I remember at one point I was stubborn and I closed anyway. And that was a nightmare. You probably remember that year. It was not fun. But it was actually like your experience as well that then you shared with me.
That's similar to what I'm talking about,
Yeah.
But this is the thing, like, but it's all a learning curve, you know. I think part of personal development or spiritual development, we say, give ourselves permission to make mistakes because that's how we grow. Yeah. Obviously, the intent is not to make the mistake, but we do at times. And I really feel this is a big topic that nobody speaks about, and it's very, very important because I believe there's many, many people who are in this type of situation. And by the way, that's not just business. There's many people in jobs who are selling products that they know are not good for people, but they're still doing it because it pays the bills. Yeah,
it's very true. And that actually then all the way ties into the bigger end of it, which is what we talked about before, the educational system being a scam, or the medical system being a scam, or like the, how do you call it, the pharmaceutical industry, and all of these things. How many good people are in those systems, in those cogs, and because they have to take care of their families, they're, you know, it's very hard to just step out and say, well, you know what, it's just morally not right, let's go and do something else. But I think that's also what brings the biggest opportunity, because I remember one of the first lessons you taught me, the bigger the problem, the bigger the reward, is to basically say, okay, how can we then bring people this awareness and give them the means to be able to still do something about it, even if they might not be in a position to say, okay, I'm going to quit this job, or I'm going to, you know, get rid of this client or whatnot, that they're still able to make and start making changes. And I think the biggest thing, again, that I've learned from you at the start is to learn 2 skills, marketing and sales. And when you learn that, and then with you basically bringing that up in a very short space of time, and we see it with our clients all the time, you are able to actually start generating income from something that you do believe in. What do you think about that?
No, I totally agree with that. Yeah. I think it's just why I wanted to touch on the ethical income part was because sometimes short term everything can look okay. Yeah. But as both you and me know, you know, if it's not right, it comes to bite you back in the bum, you know, it happens. Yeah. And that in spiritual terms is called karma. Yes. And, you know, but the question is, for people who are in that situation, I mean, we're blessed to not need to be in that situation right now. So that's why we both can be very selective on who we want to work with or who we don't want as a client. We're divas now, you know. We it's like that. We can say no. I don't need. You know. So some people, they say, Master, can you tell me, you know, why do you think you know, do you think this program I need to attend? I say, no, I don't think anything. If you want to, you go and attend it. If you don't want to, don't attend. I feel a diva being able to be in that position. I feel it's not so nice and relaxed to be in that position now. But for many people, they're not in that position. And what would you say, or what is your advice, or how would they go about thinking about it? Go back to that scenario. They got their child that needs to eat tomorrow. Yeah. They're selling a pen. They know there's another pen on the market that does better.
Well, I think actually this, and this might be an interesting thing that I want to know your thoughts about. This is something that actually I've learned from Grant Cardone, where he says that, yeah, there might be other products out in the market, but in none of the other products do I come with the deal. And so maybe even in retrospect, like the deal that you close with that client, maybe the product to client fit wasn't necessarily there, but you were, believe it or not, the person that needed to come into that person's life. And so maybe, all in retrospect, it was right. And how does that answer the question that you just asked? Is that
come into that life for what reason?
Well, for whatever reason that might be. Sometimes we need to be in someone's energy, or to basically connect with certain people for the good or for the bad, because there's a learning that we have in that moment. And when I definitely, and this may sound a little bit arrogant, but I know that when it comes to my product, I believe in it so much, because could be some other products out there, could be other companies out there, but no other product comes with me in the deal. Meaning that I will run an extra mile for the person, I will bring my energy, I hold them accountable, I don't accept people to just, you know, play that victim game. Like, I want you to be empowered. And in the same light, I know you hold those same values, because that's how you mentored me as well. So even though maybe that client back in the day was not for the product's sake the best fit, but for your sake, because you brought a certain energy, you dealt with that client, maybe that has enlightened the client to a degree that maybe you'll never know. but it was necessary.
Well, I know for sure some enlightened client, like 13 years on, is still actively hating me online. So I don't know what awakening they got, but they are very. I definitely motivated them. They're very motivated. They show up. They show up more than my fans do.
Yeah.
But it was.
Well, maybe there's something that will connect in just a few moments. That they'll be like, you know what? I put all this energy into putting this hate forward, but actually, therefore they know your content better.
Why don't I dedicate it to something that's good, and maybe then I can change the world? You know, if I really believe people like that. I mean, haters are strong. Like haters a lot of the time are stronger than fans. You know, I can. It's very crazy.
Yeah,
it is very crazy. Yeah, and I think you know one of the situations, you know, from many years ago. The guy rocked up at and it wasn't that time was not it was not my fault, because it was just with a company that I was working for, you know. But they rocked up at the restaurant and they said, give me my money. And I said, but I don't have your money, you paid the other company. And it's just like, give me my money. I'm like, but you paid the other company. And they said, yeah, but you sold the item. I said, you gave it to I did get the money. And as a result of it, he looked me in the eye. He said, you know where I'm from? And then he said, back in Nepal, we can hire people for very cheap. I'm going to hire a lot of people. They're going to bring your name down. They're going to write everything bad about you, and they're going to bring your name down. And that was like, actually, 13 years or whatever, how many years ago now. But it's quite interesting because we're in 2025, and this person's still actively paying people to do this stuff, because you can see all the fake profiles behind all the comments, you know. But it's like, wow. It's
if only
they
you
are
were
motivated. Imagine they would have changed the world by now.
If they would divert that energy, right, and to do something.
That's why I think, they say that some people, they dedicate their lives to building their empires. Some people, they dedicate their lives to tearing other people's empires down. And it's just so happens that in this world you have both of these. Sometimes people cannot let go of.
And I think as well, like that all has in part to do with this big scam, because who knows, like, what does this guy, the environment that the guy comes from, the education system that they've been with, the family relations.
Well, everybody, I think this is a very important part of the conversation, is to understand that people are skeptical. The mind is fear-based. The mind is not designed to make you very rich or very successful or very happy. It's there just to try to keep you safe. And in that sense, then it's easy for average humans to be manipulated, because all they need to do is drive some fear, and then the whole world will abide by whatever rules they decide. So that's why all propaganda and all news. And when do you watch the news and they keep announcing who became successful today? In the news, it's always about who died, who killed who, and what happened, and all the rest of it. So
I always say, if you want your daily doses of negativity, turn on the news. It's like instant injection. It's true. And also at that, like, and I wonder what you think about this as well. It's like, what you obviously have this beautiful brand, and I know you've dedicated so many years of hard work to, you know, doing all of these things, which is not easy by a long shot. But then also, if you think about the way how things are shifting between mainstream news media, which are so much less viewed these days, and then shifting towards podcasts, where they can actually just really get to know a person and see the authenticity there, and allow there to be a different source that's not always negative, but actually is empowering. That's so refreshing. And I think with all these developments, there's definitely things going on right now that are more positively inclined, and that's why I believe that we can all break free from all of this, actually. But I want to talk about another topic, actually, also going back to your question that you asked, like, did I think it was difficult going into business, or was it easy? So the first thing that was hard was actually like the moral questions, like, I don't want to change who I am as a person, I want to stay a good person. But then the second part is directly actually connected to what you shared with me after, I think, you reached 100K subscribers on your YouTube, and you are dedicated like every single day, 5 a.m., wake up, making the videos and whatnot. And you said something like, you had the knowing. And I think it was at one of your events, you were also describing that you said, I had this feeling when I was creating this YouTube that was very comparable to my other businesses. And when I was in a certain mode, I knew, okay, this is now going to take off. And I think what was hard for me, and is hard for a lot of people, is sometimes when you get so many challenges after challenge after challenge that you're like, oh my goodness, why don't I have my break? Like, when is it my time to finally get either a bit more money or just not having constant challenges? And it was, I think, maybe a few years back that I was in a situation where there were certain challenges. And you probably know as well that certain moments in my life doing business was hard. And there was moments where, like, not everything came easy. And those were actually, now looking back, the moments that have taught me the most. Because when looking back at it, and still the challenges that we face today, they may be different than the challenges in the past, but they're challenges nonetheless, is that when you get that feeling and be like, hey, wait a second, I'm having a challenge, but I've been here before. And I know that if I just persist a little bit more and just do the right thing, do the next right thing, keep going forward, then things are going to turn around. And I think for me also, like the words that you spoke, like having the knowing, was really powerful, because it was a certain point in my business journey that I recognized that part. And I was like, okay, right now I'm going through a challenging phase, but I know that I'm doing all the right things. I'm speaking to people, I'm helping people, I'm being visible. I put the work in, I put the hours in. So if I persist just a little bit longer, it's going to happen. And those are usually the times when then the next breakthrough comes and the next scaling comes or the next something. So I want to ask you about that.
I think sometimes you can have you can take a very spiritual approach to understanding knowing. But at the same time, I see it being a very logical thing.
Yeah.
Because knowing, like, where does know come from? Know comes from knowledge. Mm-hmm. Right? The word know comes from knowledge.
Yeah.
Like, if you don't have a knowing about something, it's probably because you don't have enough knowledge around something.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, how would one suddenly have a knowing that they're going to be rich one day if they have no knowledge around wealth?
Yeah.
So in that sense, the more you get yourself educated, mentors, coaches, programs, whatever, books, around the thing that you're trying to achieve, which in this case is financial freedom or wealth, the more knowledgeable you are, the more you will feel the knowing, And then you can use this knowing word, which sounds quite woo-woo,
Yeah.
Or you can even use a different, term where people say someone's got lucky or something like that. But I always remember, I think it was Tiger Woods back then who used to always say that the more I practiced, the more luckier I got.
Yeah.
And it just comes back to the same thing again. It's about practicing that knowledge you're learning. And the more you're practicing that knowledge, the more the knowing and the more luckier you're getting. So I think it sounds quite out there, but it's quite practical thing. And that's what I believed I did. It's because it's like when I was doing YouTube, I started to learn what other people were doing, so I knew what the approach was. So I kind of knew there would be that outcome. Yeah, so I think it's important to cover that. Otherwise, some people, they just think, oh, I don't have that type of intuition,
Yeah, but also, actually, if you think about it, it's so similar across different elements of life. So it could be that someone is like, hey, I want to build the business, but I have no necessary business knowledge. Well, number one, make sure to get yourself a mentor or get the education. But number two, you probably do have the knowledge in another area of life, like parents, for instance. It takes hard work being a parent. Now, I'm not a parent myself yet, but I have seen obviously my parents, and I can see how hard so many parents work.
Well, you should have seen Kaina 2 weeks ago.
Yes, that was so beautiful, man, with the girls calling her mommy. But even in that, so if you have experience in that act of, or that part of life, then you can translate that to another sports, which being business as well. Or if you are, let's say, oh, my headphones is falling off. If let's say you are working out and you're in the gym and you know how that works, how building those muscles in the gym is the same with business. You have to just build the business muscles, which is the muscle of marketing, muscle of sales, muscle of, communicating a little bit with people. And that you can, in my opinion, draw from other areas of life where you do have that experience and then still be able to apply it. Now, obviously, practically, you need to know what to do, which is why everybody should come to your events and learn a lot of different things and stuff like that. But it's not that hard as long as you make that decision, which is what I want to put forward, and I want to hear what you think about it. I always say at our events, success is a decision. What do you think about that?
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
It's they just need to decide that that's what they want.
Yeah.
And if once they decide, then they need to commit. They need some form of action.
Yeah. And then don't quit. Keep going. Keep going, one foot in front of the other. Keep doing the right thing. Yeah.
Adapt.
Adapt.
But adapt, but don't quit.
Yeah.
Sometimes changing lanes isn't quitting.
Yeah.
I
Exactly.
think that's because sometimes some people can be stubborn because they think don't give up.
Yeah.
And they keep using the same approach.
Yeah. Exactly.
So definitely adapt, but don't give up on the dream.
And to that effect, what you just said about adapting, like one of the things that I always believe in is taking action opens new doors. Because right now, from this perspective, I may see like whatever I can see from this field of view. But if I take action and I therefore step one step forward, I can see other things around me all of a sudden that wasn't there before. So it's only natural that you would adapt because you would never be able to foresee that from that position that you are in.
Very much like this first podcast that you're recording.
Huh?
It's very much like this first podcast that you're recording.
Yes.
Because you're doing something that's different. And
Yeah.
we don't know where this is going, who will listen to this. But we do know that this may open doors for new opportunities or
Yeah.
new ideas.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. You know,
Yeah.
people are afraid to try new things. I think that's the problem.
Yeah.
But they don't realize when you try the new things, it might not be that what you think. It might not be that this podcast show is something that gets 1 million subscribers, let's say, and maybe that was the goal. But it may open some other door, which then takes you to a different path where you're supposed to be on. You know, and that's the thing. And I think people are just afraid, or people are afraid. Like, what if it goes wrong? What if this podcast gets no views? But
Yeah.
well, if it gets none, it gets none. You just do something else.
We do it because it's the right thing. And also, to that point, sometimes, especially like the younger generation, are all about the views and the likes and that sort of stuff, and which is obviously a cool thing because it contributes to you being able to make a bigger impact. But we always very much also train our students in saying that, yes, it is about being able to put yourself out there and you want the numbers to grow. But at the same time, if you do not appreciate the one viewer, you're not worthy of the thousands. Like if I'm going to be a diva attitude in the negative sense, saying like, hey, I'm only going to do this podcast if I get 1 million views, that's the only reason why I would show up.
But that's why energy
But, yeah.
needs to go out before you start thinking about return.
Yeah.
That's like people who go to a job and say, how much are you going to pay me?
Yeah.
It's like, no, what are you going to give to the company?
Yeah. What can I do for you?
It's like, I need to be paid more, but you haven't even started working yet.
Yeah.
I don't even know what you got. Like, why are you
Yeah.
demanding more? But that will always be the broke mentality, and that will always be the average mentality. And
Yeah.
that's why, you know, it's very hard for people to make it in entrepreneurship if they have that mentality. Because what is entrepreneurship? Entrepreneurship is serving first.
Yeah.
We have to serve. We have to serve. Whether there's an outcome or no outcome, we have
Yeah.
to serve, and we have to keep serving, and you know, and eventually we get the outcome. But
Yeah.
you know, I think that a lot of people don't understand that, and so they always say, "Well, show me the money, then I'll do it." Yeah. But it's not. It's
Yeah.
like you've got to plant loads of seeds and you got to take loads of actions before you see any outcome. That's
Yeah.
how anything is built. You know, imagine if I say, "Show me my 6-pack" before I start my sit-ups. You know. You cannot do that. So
Yeah.
you have to do sit-ups for a long time and eat well for a long time
Yeah.
before you're going to see any pack.
Yeah.
And that's the thing.
Yeah, exactly. And I guess that is the final topic that I wanted to hit on. And I can be a little bit direct in this. So I want to see what you think. Like, I always feel like when we are working with our clients and everything, I always say, like, there's no room for this sissy mentality. Be aware that you are in power, and we all have the power, and actually taking that back to, let's just say, to the olden days. So right now we're living in a world where there's a lot of convenience. Like if I am not bothered to go out there and go to the grocery shop, I just go and say instant food and whatever, delivery. Or if I don't want to go and do something with the dogs, then I can just hire someone to come and do whatever. And so there's so much convenience, which on the one hand is a good thing, but on the other hand, it also kind of breaks us away or weakens us to a degree where we're no longer like we used to be, because back in the day, if we don't hunt our food, we're not going to eat and we're going to die. So in my opinion as well, one of the very important steps with being able to truly create a life of freedom, whatever that may be to the listener, is that you actually say like, hey, you know what? I've had certain things in my life, certain things were good, certain things were not so good, nice, not so nice. But at the end of the day, I'm here now. And if I want change, it's going to start by me changing. And I'm taking take full responsibility to at least do the right thing right now in this moment, which is, can I help a person? Can I make a post that is going to be empowering? Can I put a little bit extra effort in my job, do a few extra hours, which will already result in perhaps a little bit more income? And so one of the things that we always put forward is like, let's get back to that olden mentality where it's not like everything's going to be done for us, but let's just take the power back in our own hands and actually do the right thing and not play the victim, because you taught me there's reasons or results. There's not room for both of that. So what do you think about that? Like really being able to kind of like, stop being a sissy, to say it in short.
Actually they can be whatever they want to be. Like I think I don't have time for that right now. Like I don't. I decided at some point I don't have time for it. Yeah. When people they say, oh, we still get people like that. They say, I want the success, but I don't know why I keep procrastinating. And I said, then don't be successful.
Yeah.
You don't like. I really like that saying where they say the biggest enemy of a great life is a good life, and I think that's where a lot of people are. I mean, they may not class their life as good, but there's some comfort somewhere.
Yeah.
The reality is, if you had a 9-month-old baby and needed some food, you're gonna hustle and grind.
Yeah.
The reality is, if there was a gun pointed to your head every morning and said you have to wake up at 6 a.m., you're gonna wake up at 6 a.m. Yeah. All the rest is excuses. And so it's a choice.
Yeah. So
when people say, "Oh, what you just refer to as, being a sissy," I'm just like, well, that's fine, but you need to come to acceptance. That's what you've chose.
Yeah.
And that's you've got to be accountable for that, because the rest of your life, that's how it's going to be.
Yeah.
But to win in this game, you got to play the game differently. And we all have the ability to do so.
Yeah.
That's what I said. I literally had a kid a couple of months back ask the question. He said, I keep procrastinating every day and I can't wake up in the mornings. And I said, well, just set alarm, do it, just do it. Yeah, but I seen a doctor and the doctor said I have this illness. And I said, okay, well, if I stood by your bed and held a gun at your head tomorrow, would you stand up? Yes, I will. Okay, so you don't have a problem.
Yeah.
You said the doctor said you have an illness that you can't wake up in the morning. But you just answered me and said you would if there was a gun pointed at your head. So how does that make sense?
Yeah.
People don't have a strong enough reason. That's why they don't get the results. And so they end up giving the excuses as reasons instead. And that's what people do.
Yeah, and then making sense of it, and then that becomes the story that we tell ourselves. But what is also very important, I guess, if everyone listening to this is taking your words to their heart, that they know, you can predict your life. Things are not going to change. You're going to stay the same. Imagine now that you are 95 years old by the grace of God, and you're looking back on your life and you're thinking like, okay, did I actually do the things that I wanted to do? And what are the things that perhaps you regret? And there was actually a study done amongst elderly people that were at the end of their lives, and they were asked like, what is the thing that you regretted the most? And what they said was not the things that they did do, for the most part, but the things that they didn't do. So if you're listening to this, start taking those steps, because there's risk in everything. There's risk in taking action. There's risk in not taking action. But the risk in not taking action is bigger because we realize only when it's too late. So at that stage, I want to say thank you so much for this wonderful first podcast. I'm so excited.
Thank you.
And I want to say to everybody who's listening, thank you so much for listening. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, then please give this video a like. Make sure to share it. Make sure to comment. Make sure to subscribe. And if you think that someone else can benefit from this, please feel free to share it with your friend or comment and have someone else see this as well. And most importantly, if this video empowered you, then don't just let this be another video that was nice. Allow it to impact your life. Start doing the first step today. What can you do today that will bring you closer to the future that you want to have? And on that note, thank you so much again, Master Akarshana.
Thank you.
And we see you guys later.